I'm Jillian Rubino. I am a recent graduate of American University's Washington College of Law.
My name's Kevin Lally. I've been a police officer for 10 years in a major American city.
My name is Mary Kate Shannon. I am a recent graduate from the University of Maryland, Baltimore.
In my third year at American University Washington College of Law, I was a student attorney in our domestic violence clinic. So I assisted clients that came into the clinic in seeking temporary and civil protective orders in DC Superior Court. In my second semester in the clinic, I actually had the opportunity to work with the U.S. Attorney's Office as a student attorney and try cases in criminal cases in domestic violence under supervision, obviously, of assistant U.S. attorneys, but I did try my own cases.
Initially, in the beginning of my career, for the first 6 years, I spent in patrol responding to domestic violence and other assaults in which women were the victims. Initially, responding to a scene, patrol officers will give the initial interview as far as determining suspects, the culpability of any suspects, victim statements, where and when the offense took place, things of that nature.
I think I'm more of an activist, like I said, an organizer. Like I said, I don't really work one-on-one. I don't consider that my strength. And getting people to speak out about sexual violence and sexual assault and how it has impacted them, because I think there's just a lot of silence around the issue, and I think that needs to stop, and I think other survivors need to know that they're not alone. The work that I've done is just sharing my story and encouraging other people to talk about their stories and their own experiences and how it impacts them. So.
In the police academy, we receive a large block of training on domestic violence, including federal laws like I believe it's the Lautenberg Act, in reference to if somebody is convicted of a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence, they can't own firearms. We learn about the papering and court process involving domestic violence, stay-away orders, restraining orders, every facet that could possibly be applied to a domestic violence incident. We're given a block on sensitivity training as far as understanding different cultures, different people, and we also understand the psychological damage that an offense could could give to somebody. I mean, even though for us it's just another call, and it might be a very minor assault, it could be the worst thing that has ever happened to that victim. So we're trained to treat them with respect and dignity and approach each situation like that.
I think the thing that stuck out in my mind most in terms of Vawa specific things, in my capacity at the U.S. Attorney's Office, we were obligated to keep our we use the term complaining witness or victim in terms of criminal procedure abreast of the cases that we were working on, because unlike when I worked in the civil side as a U.S. attorney, you don't have clients. Your client is the government. So I found that to be incredibly important to keep complaining witnesses in the know of what was happening in their cases to the best of our ability, because everyone that I worked with at the U.S. Attorney's Office, our number one goal was to take care of survivors. We wanted to ensure that these women and some men were in a position where they could tell their story, and that's really the most important part of a criminal trial. And keeping the women that I worked with abreast of what was happening in their cases became very important, and I got to build some great bonds with some of the women that I worked with.
Well, we have every domestic violence call that we went on, we needed to make notification to a group of advocates in reference to the victimization. They would be counselors or some form of social worker that could either provide them with housing if the offense was serious enough, counseling, medical expenses, basically things that people in poor neighborhoods or from different socioeconomic classes don't have access to. The jurisdiction provided that for them. So we would work hand in hand with those individuals and often either be there with the interviews or help conduct the interviews with the advocates. So.
I don't know that it goes far enough. I think there are some guidelines in terms of giving stricter sentencing in terms of when you're talking about rape and sexual assault. I always assumed that the Violence Against Women Act should play a role in how judges are sentencing these people. I also think and when we're talking about special populations, people who have disabilities, I think it should play more of a role in training police officers or whoever's working with survivors to be more aware of certain struggles that population has faced. I think in making people who interact with survivors more, I guess, culturally competent in a way, and learning how to treat and respond to survivors.
I think the Violence Against Women Act is an excruciatingly important piece of legislation that it's a shame that it needs to be continuously re-upped. The principles that it follows are so incredibly important to not just women, but all people who undergo violence, and the specific population and the kinds of violence that we experience is unlike any other. So it's intensely important that our government continues to support this legislation and ensure that women who undergo violence have the resources that they need to seek help and the proper procedures to decrease the amount of violence that women experience day to day. Because oftentimes, victims of domestic violence aren't just dealing with the violence, they're dealing with the potential of losing their housing, they're worried about the potential of losing medical care, of child custody, and to me, a social worker is the one-stop shop. They are the folks who know everything about every agency that they have to deal with, and it's their role in assisting victims of violence is so important because the system can be very overwhelming in trying to figure out what you need, what can happen next, particularly in a place like DC where the bureaucracy is insane at times, and we don't always have all the resources that we want to provide victims of violence. So whether that's getting folks set up in emergency housing or figuring out what's going to happen with their Social Security checks or making sure that they get back on health care if they lose the health care of their abuser in the process. The social workers really serve as the cruise director to make sure that victims of violence have all the services that they require.
I mean, we could reference dozens of possible calls to action, as you call it, but we're just one piece in the system. So, I mean, the police can only, arrest an offender or advise a victim of what steps to take from there, but we're not going to be in their life more than the hour it takes us to do that position. So I think following up with a victim, as far as social workers are concerned, even in something as minute as a phone call, could instill a sense of importance in a victim. While they may have been victimized and might feel that their self-worth has been damaged, to have somebody outside of their immediate circle contact them could boost their confidence and help them continue along the path of getting out of the cycle of domestic violence.
I'm a social worker, and I think it's time that we start taking rape and sexual assault seriously. Survivors have to know that we stand by them, and when they report or if they don't report, either way, they have to know that there's a path to recovery, and that they can, whatever their definition of justice is, that they can get it, and we can help them achieve it.
I'll tell you what will constitute victory. Victory will occur, and we can do this, when not a single solitary woman who is ever abused or has a hand laid on her without her consent, when not a single woman asks the question, what did I do? It is never, 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 never her fault.